Many of us struggle with a lack of energy and forcing ourselves to make it through the day, often using stimulants like coffee or energy drinks to help. But this is not how we are to live our lives. Listen in to today's episode to hear tips on how you can create more energy in your day to accomplish all you set out to do.
Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining me today. If you missed the last episode and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my social media pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when my podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. This episode is a little different as I recorded multiple podcasts in one day at an event and didn't have bios to read at that time. So let me share a little bit about my guest today. Despite appearing to have it all together, Susan Cruz was a hot mess. She was tired all the time, which led to the creation of the Energy Booster Blueprint. She is sought after wellness speaker, the host of the Radiant Soul Sisters podcast, founder of the Radiant Soul Sisters community, yoga teacher, and a trusted CEO. Now to my interview with Susan Cruz. So Susan, welcome to my show today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Candy, for having me.
I'm excited to have you here, but before we get into the topic that we're going to talk about, I would love for you just to tell me a little bit more about yourself and how did you start working with entrepreneurs?
Thank you. It's a great question because I actually am a 5-time entrepreneur, but I am also a mother of 4 children that were born within 5 years of each other.
Oh, wow. You had your hands full.
Yes, we did. We had our hands full. There was one year that my husband and I had 4 businesses between the two of us. We had 7 softball and baseball teams during the summer. So needless to say, it was quite busy. I laugh at that because we used to have a color-coded calendar that hung on the back of our door. And my husband, I trained him. I know that sounds terrible, but that's the best way to explain it. I trained him to look at the calendar. And if my color and his color were at the same time, then he knew that he had to pick up the children or part of the children, whatever. And we had Sunday Summit. So we had it all mapped out. So during this summer, we both had a lot going on, but we had all these ball teams. He was playing softball. And so 3 children had to be at ball games. I had that taken care of. He was only responsible for the youngest one at that time, who was 4. So he goes out to his softball game and he's warmed up and he's getting ready to get in the lineup to go bat. And one of my girlfriends says, "Well, where's Susan and the children tonight?" And he said, "Oh, my word." And he had left the 4-year-old at home by himself. So we chuckle about that, but we were very busy when the children were all growing up. But anyway, what happened, Candy, you asked, how did I get into working with entrepreneurs? What I found through my entrepreneurial journeys is that I carried over from my childhood the go, 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 go mentality. And that I had ingrained in my mind that the harder I worked, the more money I would make. And that hard work was the only way to make money. My father and my mom are entrepreneurs as well. And so when I hit my early 40s, I was exhausted. I looked like I had it all together on the outside, and people thought I did, including my husband and my children. And I don't know if you heard earlier, I was sharing the story. It was Thanksgiving, and I love Thanksgiving. And the only thing under our beds is the leaf to our dining room table. And when I went to get it, I fell sound asleep. And it
Mm-hmm.
was when I woke up, or actually when my husband woke me up, that I realized I had to make changes. And then I did. I made lifestyle changes. I created the energy booster blueprint, but I questioned then, if this is me, how many other women live in this space as well?
Mm-hmm.
That we look like we have it all together on the ends outside, but we're exhausted, we're tired, we're missing out on pieces of life because we are in a work form or a work mentality that we've got to go, 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 go. And we don't necessarily have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What I came to find out was that if I would bring in my divine energy, my feminine energy, and blend that with my masculine energy, then I was able to work with more ease and flow and still create money flow and have actually more success at work and more joy in my life.
Mm-hmm. And I think
And
as entrepreneurs, we're all exhausted though, right? Like that was what you're
right,
talking about. So it's not even just, I understand that was like your whole life. There was so much going on. But even if somebody maybe isn't even married, right? Maybe they're just
right,
an entrepreneur and they're, like you said, I think most of us as entrepreneurs have like this achievement thing, or like you said, go, 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 checking things off the list. I mean, to be an entrepreneur, there's so many things we have to wear, especially when we're first starting out. We wear all the hats,
all the
right?
hats in the beginning.
You
When
know?
we're taking that, I liken it to a rocket ship. In the beginning, you've got to give it lots of fuel, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of that fuel, you can't ask somebody else to pour in there because you're
Mhm.
figuring things out, right?
Right.
So I think of it like this too. I talk a lot about harmony, not necessarily balance. I think about
Mhm.
harmony and think about a beautiful symphony, right? And all the instruments are playing, and you just hear this gorgeous, gorgeous music. But at times, one of your instruments, or you might have to play an instrument a little bit harder, especially in the takeoff stage of your
Mhm.
entrepreneurial world. And so it doesn't sound so pretty, but it's only
Mhm.
a measure. Then you get
Right.
to come back and put it together, and you hear that beautiful music again. So,
Mhm.
yes, entrepreneurs and women are worse about it than men. Or eye makeup. I
Mhm.
should say that eye makeup as a whole, women are worse about it as men. When you're the entrepreneur, everything lands on your back, right?
Right. Mhm.
You know,
I think, well, like when it comes to women, though, too, I mean, there are probably men who do a lot in the household and things too. But I think a lot of times as women, we feel like we have to take care of the kids, we have to do all the shopping, we have to do the food prep, we have to run the company. Like, so there's so many things on our to-do list that
yes,
that's where the exhaustion comes in too, because we just don't get a break. And I remember seeing this thing about when dad says he's going to bed, he goes to bed. When mom says she's going to bed, and then it lists like 20 more things that she's doing in that day, right? And
right.
so what would you recommend to someone then who is saying, I hear what you're saying, I am in that mode of complete exhaustion, but I still have to take care of the family. I still have to run my business, and I do not know what I can change to feel more energy.
So that is an awesome question. The first thing that I would say is start with something small,
Mhm.
something very, very small that will support you in having more energy, and look at your calendar and really evaluate, what is it I can do? What is it that doesn't have to be done? What is it that I could ask somebody else to do? I often tell women, our bodies are created to move. If you should try to move 45 minutes a day.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, women look at me like I have two heads. And
Right.
I totally get that. I totally understand, Candy, right? Because I was there.
Mhm.
So what I suggest with that is don't start with one 45-minute section. Break it up into 3 sessions a day. And even if you can't get in 3 15-minute sessions a day, cut it back and do 3 5-minute sessions.
Mhm.
And that will be 15 minutes of movement that you didn't have yesterday, right? But if you
Mhm.
do it with the sun, this is fascinating to me. If you do it with the sun, so get up and do 5 to 15 minutes first thing in the morning, maybe while your coffee's perking or your coffee's making, whatever. Get outside for 5 to 15 minutes. And what that does for our bodies is that says, good morning, it's time to rise and shine, right?
Mhm.
And then the next time you want to walk is like when it's close to high noon, because that's when you're going to get the energy from the sun at its highest point, and you're going to absorb vitamin D.
Mhm.
So that is telling your body, I am alive, I'm vibrant, it's the middle of the day, I can make it. Okay. And then the last time you want to walk is at night, right as the sun is setting, right after you have dinner. And, we're a farm family. My husband farms. And so our dinners are late sometimes. So sometimes at night, I was walking a little bit later than I like to. But if you can do it as the sun is starting to set, or at least going down, what that does for your body is that tells your body, hello, we're getting ready to rest, and your body will start naturally making melatonin. And
Mhm.
melatonin is what we need to sleep, right? So then
Mhm.
hopefully you'll get a good night's sleep, and then you'll wake up in the morning feeling more rested.
Mhm.
It's a very simple tool to align your body to the circadian rhythm,
Mhm.
right?
Well, while you were talking about that, though, I was thinking, like, is it more important to really be like based on the times of day that the sun is coming up and going down, or is it more important to stay more like on a schedule per se? Because depending on where you live to in the United States, like let's say you're in the north, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
in, the winter time, you have a lot less daylight. And in the summertime, it could be 9 o'clock at night and it's still light outside, right? And so your schedule could be way different depending on the time of year it is.
Well, exactly. And my answer to that would be, is it's more important to get it done within a time period than an
Mhm.
exact time. So, morning, if you look at your weather app, it always says like, when is the sunrise? When is the sun setting?
Right.
Well, if you look at like an
Mhm.
hour before, hour after, hour and a half before, hour and a half after, it's okay to get it in that time frame.
Mhm.
You see does that make sense? You don't
Right.
want your midday walk at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, because
Mhm.
then the sun is already moving down, right?
Mhm.
So you do want it sort of within the time frames, but it doesn't have to be exact. The most
Mhm.
important part of it is that you get outside and that you're walking, right?
Mhm. Right.
It does, you don't have to be a power walker. You can get out there and walk. Unfortunately, there have been times I've had to do it in heels, but I don't
Mm.
recommend that.
Right.
You can just, you can have a pair of flip-flops or just a pair of tennis shoes that you can pop on your feet if you take them with you, if you don't work at home, take them with you. And,
Mhm.
in New York or in our cities, that's what a lot of women do all the time,
Right. Mhm.
you
I
know,
did that once. I was going to a conference and actually it was in New York
right?
and I was booked a little bit further away. And so I had my nice clothes on, but I put on the dress shoes and I walked the 10 blocks or 15 blocks or whatever it was, thinking like, I hardly ever get out and get exercise anyway, so this is probably good for me, right? And I could have grabbed an Uber or whatever, but I'm like, I'm
Right.
going to walk. I'm just going to leave earlier. I'm going to get that little bit of exercise. And, some people might think it looks funny to be wearing tennis shoes with a dress or whatever, but maybe people realize like this is the exercise, right? So I think that's a good idea. Take it when you can.
Yeah.
But so many of us sit in a chair all day because of computer work, right? So sometimes it's harder to pull ourselves away.
And I'll tell you two stories about New York City, or one about the city and one about Brooklyn, but the same thing. I went to a conference in New York City, and it was, I think, before Apple Watches, but maybe I had a Fitbit or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got in 22,000 steps a day. I was in a conference for 6 hours a day. But it was because, like you said, I was walking from my hotel to the conference. Then we'd walk to lunch. Then we'd walk back, so we did a lot of work walking just in between places. And I think 10 or 15, maybe, as few as 10 or 15 years ago, people would have looked at us like we were crazy having on our tinnies with our work clothes, where this day and time, people don't even really notice. The other thing that I was going to say, I have a client who lives in Brooklyn. And when I suggested to her, I didn't tell her, when I suggested, we were trying to get movement into her life, that she do the walks outside. She's like, Susan, I live in Brooklyn. Have you ever seen it here? There's cement, tall buildings everywhere. There's no nature here. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, let's talk about that. Can you look for plants in pots? Can you look for trees in pots? Look at the sky, look at this, look at that. She came back and told me she counted 28 weeds growing in the cracks of the sidewalk. So we can always find nature.
Right, exactly.
And it gives us energy.
Mm-hmm. So, do you talk also to entrepreneurs about like nutrition and things that they maybe should be doing? Because sometimes too, as entrepreneurs, we're working so much, we might grab something that maybe isn't as healthy, but it's easy to grab versus maybe having some prepared foods. Like, what would you recommend to help with that energy?
So yes, food is an important part of keeping up our energy levels. I was actually laughing with somebody not long ago because I was a swimmer growing up. And when we were swimmers, we were like, can you believe on swim meets, our parents would give us boxes of Jell-O, and we would literally pour that sugar in our hands and eat it. I'm like, wow. Oh my goodness, that, and think about it. Here's this kid that's been on Weight Watchers since she's in 5th grade, getting boxes of Jell-O, pure sugar. It wasn't sugar-free for energy. And the unfortunate fact about sugar is that it busts our energy. And when we reach and grab, oftentimes our food has sugar in it in one form or another. And so we talk about in some of my programs the importance of planning food. And it does take time. It adds something into your calendar, but then it can give you time back because you know what you're planning to eat. And so I typically use the weekend that
Me too.
Yeah, on Fridays, I plan for the next week, and then I use the weekend to prep the food. So like I can throw a salad together really quickly. For example, last night was a night that I was cooking for my husband and I. So we were grilling out something, but I also bought a roasted chicken. And so I made some chicken salad. So like today we had great leftovers for lunch that we didn't have to worry about. Both of us could grab very quickly and get something nutritious. So it does add a little time to plan, but number one, it ends up giving you more time because you know what's coming. And then it also, you aren't reaching for the snacky foods.
Right.
So yeah.
Which are generally full of preservatives and like I said, sugar or whatever, that's not healthy.
Right. And the phytochemicals, You know, the phytochemicals from the sun, what make plants have their color. They give us energy. Think when you eat those colorful meals, they energize you just looking at them.
Yeah, it's
So
so
I do,
important.
yes.
Like I said, it's important just to set aside the time. And again, we feel overwhelmed. There's so much to do. But if you really can, like for me, I'll do food prep, same thing on the weekends. And generally, like you said, you'll have leftovers. So it can carry you kind of through the week as well, too. So I know
Cook
super
once,
important.
eat twice.
Exactly.
That's what, that my husband was like, I just really can't even believe you adopted that motto, because I was not really big on leftovers. But now that's the motto in our house. We cook once, we eat twice, sometimes three times.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
Well, I know we're running short on time, so I would love to ask if you have an offer that you would like to share with our listeners, and also how can they connect with you if they like more information?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Candy, for asking. So, yes, if anybody would like to grab the Energy Booster Blueprint, which is 7 secrets to busting your exhaustion cycle, you can get that at susancrewsco.com. That's SusanCrewsco.com. And you can connect with me on any of the socials at Susan Crewsco.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for being a guest and chatting with me today on this. It's an important topic for us as entrepreneurs to really understand, and we don't always pay attention to it. So I appreciate your time.
Self-care is a tough one, but it's so important. It's important for everybody, but really important for entrepreneurs because you do have a lot on your plate. Candy, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, and thank you so much too.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. I hope you found this discussion interesting and enjoyed the discussion on the Energy Booster Blueprint. Would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform? I'd really appreciate your support. If you have additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Susan or send me a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next interview. And remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. This episode is sponsored by Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services. If you are overwhelmed trying to handle all the financial aspects of your business, ABP is here to help. Contact us today at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.